Around us too. It's a very interesting thing to play a game, or at least find a game that you feel like is underrated or at least not talked about enough. Now, I think this is pretty high quality, but I will also preface this by saying, first off, this is 4 a.m. It's 4 a.m. when I'm recording it at least. And second off, I've only been playing this for about a week, maybe a week and a half or two. And so I haven't necessarily had enough time to fully finalize my thoughts on this game in comparison to the likes of Wuthering Waves or Honkai Star Rail and so on. But this is a pretty high quality game in my opinion. I do like it. I didn't play at launch, so as a result, I can't necessarily speak on if the game has dramatically improved, what the quality of life has been, and things like that, but I can say from my experience thus far, it's pretty fun. Now, I started during the Roxy portion of the collab. For any individual who's curious, yes, there is a collaboration event going on, and it's pretty decent, question mark? So one of the things I want everybody to at least know, if you are intent on trying this game out, the initial 2 variations of the characters you get are for free, i.e. the collab characters. You have the, in this instance, cat outfit variation alongside this much more formal or at least practical attire. Then you have succubus Roxy and then a witch attire. And these two, even though, yes, the same character, these costumes are just different skills, and yeah, they do appear as different units on your home screen, but in this instance, witch variation, and in this instance, much more adventurer-esque attire, are free. It is the cat-based attire and the succubus attire that you are then summoning for. So if you're intent on pulling, you get 2 collab characters very free, and they are both very good. If any individual is perhaps curious about what the animations are, this is the ultimate animation for the free variation of Eris. And then for Roxy in particular, this is her animation here. And so you do obviously have a chance to pull characters who, yes, are more covered up, but still are pretty good. Like, yeah, this isn't exactly on par with the succubus variation of Roxy. And this isn't on par with that in terms of exposure either. But in terms of the value of these units, they're both actively good. I'd say Brown Dust 2, in my opinion, is it's a bit of an awkward situation to be in, because I do believe the game itself is nice, and I do want to recommend you play it, but I do understand there are certain issues. This game does not have relationship stories. So you may have a character that you legitimately think is very cute, or a character that you may like. For me, for instance, it was Anastasia here. I like her a lot from a design perspective. Do I like her character? Well, look, it's a 50-50, my guy. Because there's no relationship story, your only chance to really get to know a character are in 2 main ways. First off, do they appear in the main story? Now, if they are a collaboration character, like Roxy, for example, then your only chance to necessarily get to know her is via her event. Now, this can be hit or miss for you depending on what you prefer. If you don't care at all about relationship stories in games, this is going to be great for you. Pull for design, pull for hotness, cool, wonderful, great, have a good time. But if you're somebody who really wants to bond with your characters, then this game doesn't have that as close as, especially in the likes of Blue Archive and so on. And even Arknights, for example, has the operator records. This doesn't have that. In a rather confusing twist though, this does have bond stats, but these bond stats are stats you basically, in essence really, just kind of pay for. And by that I mean, you legitimately go through here and use your currency in-game to bond with a unit, i.e. increasing their base attributes. So it's a confusing twist of words. I don't like it. They could have just renamed it to literally anything else. Ascension stats. I don't care. Bond sounds like there's going to be a bond or an intimacy level based on how often I use you in combat or how much I know about you, and that's not here. So keep that in mind. Secondarily, the game does a pretty bad job of explaining anything to you, like the valuation of stats, crit rate versus crit damage versus attack percentage, and who does what and how this all affects you. For instance, many individuals choose to focus on a magic team versus a physical team. I go for a physical team. It's complicated. So I will say that earlier game, yes, this doesn't necessarily matter, but as you reach into the late game, you do kind of want to finalize your teams, so to speak, and at least vaguely know what you're aiming for stat-wise. Because there are a lot of features and things that you can use. If you're looking at your companions, for instance, this character here, Layla, may not be appealing to you, but she's really good for crafting. And so in that instance, yeah, she actually has significant value. And that's kind of a downside because you don't know why that's valuable. You don't know why she's good in a lot of scenarios until you get to the point where you're crafting gear, until you want to actually take a look at your team and say, hey, I want to get you some halfway decent gear, and you have to craft that or find that. But hey, that's an entirely different subsection, entirely different story, and I do understand this game can be very confusing for newbies. I will aim to make a game or a guide, at least in the future, for this game in particular, because I do believe it's something worthwhile to play, especially if you have the free time and looking for another gacha to try out, but I don't think it does a good job of explaining things to you. Now, if you're personally interested, you can add me in this game, by all means. My UID is in the top left corner. I'll leave it on the description down below, but I will say, Grounders 2's combat can be hit or miss. And in my opinion, this kind of comes down to a vaguely similar situation to HSR, wherein you can auto the combat. If you do, it's gonna get boring. But if you choose to manually play it, it can get boring due to the repetitiveness unless you're fighting against the bosses or, in this instance, some of the events. If you're looking at the events themselves and wondering what they do have to offer, well, it's a pretty standard affair. You have your normal battles, which is essentially your event stages. You have your story, but I'm pretty sure all of you know what a story is, so I don't want to explain it. And yes, you do get your normal currency of gems and then the event shop currency. For the event shop, if you're worried about what's in here, it's just the normal materials of, hey, here's your currency. Hey, here are upgrade materials. Hey, here are the ascension materials, i.e. things to rank up your units, which is the equivalent to ascending them or getting them to the next variation of their respective levels. The gear is good, but keep in mind that the gear can also be dependent on what requirements there are to level it. For instance, this beast's clutch may be great, especially if you're early game, but may solely be level up via the Berserker's Claw. And that can be very iffy depending on if you can actually farm these stages. There is a stamina system within this game, and that stamina system is cooked rice. This game will not tell you how to use your cooked rice properly, and if it does, then a small tutorial that you can pretty comfortably miss. So for any individual who is maybe concerned about, how to use it, you have two options. First off, growth, which is unlocked after chapter 3, I believe, and that is how you farm out your slimes, which are your variation of experience or your gold. If you don't want to do that, you're going to be prioritizing stuff like hunting grounds, which are where you get just standard fare materials that you're going to use and other attributes. Once again, the game is kind of bad at telling you that. But this game is having an anniversary soon. If you start now, you could potentially roll for either Eris or Succubus Roxy. You get, once again, these two for free. If you're looking at Succubus Roxy in the beginning, you start out, can do an infinite reroll for a character. Your ideal reroll should always be a character that you like, i.e. Anastasia. You could like Cher in this instance. And yes, these characters here can be gotten otherwise via free methods or just throughout the gameplay themselves. I understand that. But if you're looking at rerolling and doing your infinite reroll, your goal will always be get the character and pair them with their SR weapon. It will usually say who it's for. Anastasia in this instance is paired with Anastasia's weapon. So you want to do that infinite reroll very quickly, get the character, get the weapon, boom. And then you get about 40 to 50 pulls, at least initially once you start out, and you can dump that all into the beginner banner. And by beginner banner, I mean into the limited banner here and limited banner here. Each day you get one free draw across all of these banners, weapon banner included. And so if you're looking into progressing into this game, clicking into starting this game, your goal will strictly be, hey, roll for Eris if you're going for physical teams, roll for Succubus Roxy if you're going for a magic team or just like the ass. For any individual who's curious about, hey, how intense is that Succubus Roxy ass? I'm just gonna let this play out here because this is 90% of the reason you pull for this character. Not saying I disapprove, just saying, it's true. So if you're going for this, go ahead, but understand that you can reroll for either one of these. Now, do I personally recommend rerolling? I'd say yeah, honestly. The process itself isn't too bad. Your longest amount of time will be spent rerolling for the infinite duration banner or the infinite reroll banner. Beyond that, these, it's quick and easy. You know when you get them, good, move on. The reason as to why is if you're starting this game, anniversary is coming up soon, you get about 200 to 300 pulls in total, a free +5 5-star, or a free +5 SSR. In that instance, a +5 is the equivalent to maxing them out, i.e. pulling enough dupes to fully get them. Think of it as C6, E6, Limit Break 3 if you're playing Nikke. It's basically the maxed variation of a character. Get them for free. Play the game. If you're wondering about monetization, do understand that you can purchase the Battle Pass completely free with your own currency that you earn via in-game just playing, which is a plus. And you do basically get it back, just in the form of other variations, i.e. straight up pro currency or rewards that you need otherwise. Now, if you're looking at this and wondering what the combat is like in this game, if you click auto, the game will automatically sort through and try to organize your roster properly. It pass or fail depending on the situation. But you have buffers, you have your standard healers, and obviously this is what you're doing. You have your AoE attacks, your single target attack. This is a level 1 enemy, so please don't, mind the damage. But yes, this is an option you have available to you in the event that you are choosing to get involved. You can manually play this. There are certain attack ranges you want to keep in mind. Your formation does matter because enemies do have a targeting priority, whether it's the front, the back, or the middle section. They do have AoE, and they can be knocked around, i.e. knocked back. And there are environmental effects like bombs and so on. But once again, this is if you choose to get involved. I'd say the main draw of this game first and foremost is the art style, the animation quality, the oats, what you saw earlier. And then I'd say the gameplay and characters second. I don't know what they plan on adding quality of life wise after the anniversary or during the anniversary, so I will not necessarily speak on that. But of course, this is entirely up to you. Play it if you want, skip it if you don't. I personally recommend it. I'm having fun with it, but I can understand why you might not, especially in the event that you are already playing a bunch of other gachas. Either way, I'll see you next time. Goodbye.